Alright guys, Scrappy again today. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Major Rostermania developments overnight. iLLeY was very highly linked to the Minnesota Rokkr over the last couple of days. It now seems like Gunness may be going there instead. What are the reasons behind this change? iLLeY now back on the sidelines, potentially stuck in purgatory full-time on the Seattle Surge, knowing their history with potential buyout drama, or did iLLeY simply just fail to impress in the trials with Rokkr over the last couple of days? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate. There is plenty to get into today. Firstly, Boston Breach. They've made some serious changes to their coaching staff here. So Magic is in, so is JurNii. JurNii, I'm guessing, is retired, I suppose, because he was a player on the Boston Breach Academy for some time. The construction man, if you guys have been around a few years, from MW19 when he was just dominant force in that top construction building on that Ramaza map, which was horrible, but JurNii seemed to like it on that side of things. He was in the league, he was out of the league. Makes sense, to be fair, for JurNii that he probably doesn't feel like another spot is going to come around anytime soon. So Denz is still their general manager. Zed is still their head coach, I suppose. We know that B-Sport Josh is gone, kicked out of the organization. There was some discussion potentially that, well, Zed and Josh, their roles were overlapping and all this. I'm like, okay, come on, they've been together for some time now. That sounds like a bit of an excuse to me to make a coaching change. As to whether you think that one of those or both of those guys are useless, I don't know. But clearly Boston, they're not in the best position. They're going to make some moves. Zed is there, now Magic is in. He was working with their academy side before, and now JurNii is in as well. So whether this is now the key to turning the ship around at Boston, we shall see. Because they have the resources, Boston, and there are plenty of other teams down there at the bottom of the league with fewer resources than these guys. They have a couple of stages to get off rock bottom of the CDL and make it to the World Championship. I think they can do it. Am I massively inspired by their new team? No, I'll be honest. But look, we'll see how time dictates on this one. We've got to mention though as well, this map, 6-star, it's now officially in the game. What a beautiful map, man. It's super frustrating to me that it's not, well, frustrating maybe, but Sledgehammer, I don't know how long they've been sitting on this map for, or how long it's been developed for, but we've had to play some, you know, death and respawn simulators on some shocking maps, I'm not going to lie, this season. And then you see something this beautiful come along. And yeah, I mean, this is what the map looks like. It's absolutely stunning. I will show just quickly here, because this was going around, where the bomb sites are located. Now, BenJ Nasim also mentioned, I mean, look at this B bomb site. It's so well put together, I think. This honestly could be great. I'm hoping that at least for one of the game modes, the pros put this in. Sledgehammer apparently have told BenJ Nasim that let's say in respawn, we know that one of the hard points is in the water, in the pool on the other side of the map, which is, yeah, some people would say, shouldn't that really be the case, or shouldn't it? We can actually see the pool side, which is right about here. So one of the hard points is in this pool, and apparently Sledgehammer have told Ben and other content creators that, like, they are willing to consider changing it, but they think that it might work, so they want to try it. What I'm hoping is that the pros don't say, well, it's in the water, it's time to go, and then they don't bother considering the map, because they absolutely should. And look, even if this doesn't play that well with the spawn situation and everything, like, you can make a beautiful map if the spawns don't work, it still ain't great. But if it's got to be better than what we've currently got, right? Like, there's no doubt in my mind that this would play better and just be a better experience, given the fact that Sledgehammer have, to their credit, put effort in creating maps with some competitive idea in mind. Makes a lot more sense, I think, than playing the old school MW2 maps that were not designed in that way at all. If all of those old school MW2 maps were to disappear and we were to play the, 5-6 maps that Sledgehammer have tried to design for the competitive scene in some sense, the game would probably play better, to be fair. This almost looks like Plaza as well. It's that, I'ma try it out building. If you guys know what I'm talking about from back in the day, if you don't, then, you missed out on a great time is all I'll say on that. I'ma try it out. Okay. However, we got some serious changes to the game as well. Stun grenades, frag grenades, both nerfed in the changes. So as we can see here, stun grenade decreased victim aim slowless duration, which is, when you get stunned, you are stunned in this game. So that is now kind of being reduced to some degree. Victim movement and aim slowness now linearly scales down throughout the stun duration. And then also frag grenades decrease the inner explosive damage from 250 to 225, decrease intermediate explosive damage from 150 to 130. So relatively significant. It's still going to kill you, let's be real, if it's close enough to you to make the damage work, but it won't kill you probably from as far away as it previously did. We also got changes potentially to the meta in the terms of the weapon department. My guess would be the pros are just going to keep using this stuff anyway. But the MCW and the rival both nerfed yesterday. The MCW had its headshot damage multiplier decreased down from 1.3 to 1.1x. That means you can no longer do a 4-shot kill with a headshot thrown in. So one headshot will no longer result in a 4-shot kill, which is definitely a good thing as far as I'm concerned. If you get a couple of headshots in there, I think it's still possible. But that was kind of what they did to the Krig way back in Black Ops Cold War. But still, this is, I think, a valuable change. They also changed around a couple of things on the attachments, but the general perception seems to be from Octane and others hasn't really done much. The gun still basically feels the same. It's just not quite as lethal with a headshot thrown in, which I think is good. If you want to aim for the head and get a shorter time to kill, fine. But a random headshot thrown in, I don't think really should, benefit that much, to be honest. The rival now, though, increased sprint to fire time, decreased near medium damage, decreased medium damage range, decreased lower torso, lower arm and hand damage multipliers. So that is relatively significant. The gun is still very good. It's still a bit of a ray gun. And, here's Red sitting down playing some scrims. AR's just got nerfed with this, kind of smoke thing that he's got going on lately. We saw that the other day as well. But, the GA agenda is nearly complete. There's been lots to talk about. The rival being the god gun, it's got to be nerfed and all this stuff. And I don't really think the MCW is going to massively change. There's been a couple of different class setups being thrown around. I think basically it's a similar thing. I think Parasite said, just run the same thing, but with the Stalker boots instead. And he reckons that's the way to go now. So there's some debate. We'll see what the pros settle on over the coming days. There was also this from Dashy on standard aim assist, because we've heard this talk recently about dynamic versus standard. What's better, what's worse? Pretty sure Parasite was saying several weeks ago now that he reckons standard is actually the way to go. And apparently in this new update, Dashy's saying the same thing. Now, you've always got to wonder here, as Octane says, whether this is merely propaganda, whether he's telling the other teams and obviously telling everybody, hey, use standard, it's definitely better, guys, on the aim assist settings, and the other teams start to use it. They think, yeah, maybe Dashy's onto something here, but actually it's not better, and therefore OpTic and Dashy could gain a competitive advantage. I don't know. It's probably worth trying out both, but there is arguments to suggest that standard aim assist could be better for certain individuals. The other point, though, is on whether anything could replace the rival. Like the MCW, sure, there's been a change, but I don't think that's going to be replaced. It's possible that another gun could come in for the rival, potentially, as Parasite says. Meta hasn't changed, classes are the same, just a more balanced game now between the ARs and the SMGs. But as TJ says, Lear, being Simp, dragged his nut to my forehead earlier with the Swarm. So that's when people have been discussing this gun, the WSP Swarm, and I think Octane, among many others, were using it last night in ranked play and stuff like this to see if it was any good. Turns out it's pretty damn good. Question is it viable? But apparently Simp has been running it in scrims against the Royal Ravens and has been frying with it. Now that's Simp, to be fair. Like, that's kind of a different level of player to your average CDL pro, but nonetheless, it is a weapon that's been thrown around as potentially useful in recent times, and now the rival has been nerfed somewhat. Is there a world in which the Swarm is usable? Just because we saw, let's say, MW19, when all of a sudden Envoy discovered that the Uzi was actually a very viable weapon and competitive in addition to the MP5, and therefore they started to use it, and there was a little bit of a, 2 SMG meta at a time during that title, which is not what we usually see. So I'm somewhat hopeful here that we might get an actual 3-weapon meta with the Swarm coming into play. But I'm not getting my hopes up, because you guys know how these things work. Almost always, with no exceptions, the pros, if anything is potentially viable, they'll just GH. They want to keep it how it is. They want to keep the status quo. But I wouldn't say it's impossible that somebody pulls out a Swarm in the online qualifiers over the next week or so. Now, we've got to talk about this roster stuff, because here's Shotzzy on stream, iLLeY at the main menu, Rambo in a pre-game lobby or whatever. Feeling might be, are they still part of the same team anymore? What's going on here? Vivid, though, is now scrimming with these guys. This was a team of Arceties, Gunless, Classic and Dak in challenges. I think that was going to be the team, something like that anyway. Definitely it was Arceties and Gunless, I think, with Classic +1. That was a team in challenges. Now, Vivid spotted scrimming with those guys. We know Vivid's gone from Rokkr. That's a done deal now. He's officially free agent. He's out of there, controversially so. But this team was with Gunless, so all of a sudden, Gunless ain't there anymore. Where's Gunless? Where's he gone? Turns out Gunless is now at least scrimming and potentially trialing with the Minnesota Rokkr. We heard the roster rumors the other day that the plan was going to be accuracy to stay, Lins of course to stay, +2. The feeling was it was going to be Standy for Vivid, which I have my questions about, but we did see, potentially, very likely in fact at the time, iLLeY for Awakening, which makes an awful lot of sense. Of the players on the market to replace Awakening, iLLeY seemed like a fantastic option. But as I said at the time, if iLLeY is now available to play again, for whatever reason that he wasn't able to play, as we've discussed in length over the last couple of months, would it make sense for him to go to another team, or would Seattle just bring him back? And we know that Seattle do not have a great history of allowing players to go, not exactly even freely, but simply in negotiations with certain organizations. It never seems to work out for the Seattle Surge to get these deals done. They are, as Octane has made very clear for many a time, a terribly run organisation, and I think like Octane can even see that on his time on the team. When he was there for 1 year, it didn't go particularly well. He really wanted to go to Thieves or whatever. That didn't happen though. They extended his contract, and maybe that wasn't bad management from Surge. That was maybe a fair decision, but certainly with the Pred case, we saw good examples of just this. So what's going on here? Is it the case that iLLeY scrimmed with those guys and didn't especially impress? Was he performing well? Because he played really well during stage 1 of the season, and is clearly an incredibly talented player and was the best player on Surge at the time. On paper, good upgrade. But did they scrim with him? Wasn't really working. Maybe iLLeY dropped a couple too many yo-yo-yos in the call-outs, and Lamar was like, all right, you know what, I've had enough of this. We're getting Gunless in. Because Gunless also, very solid player, one of the best players, you know, if not the best at times during Infinite Warfare, World War II, Black Ops 4, during those seasons. Been out of the league for quite some time after having the illness that forced him to the sidelines when Spart came in and won that crazy event with Los Angeles Guerrillas with the Volk back in the day in Vanguard a couple of years ago. Since then, Gunless hasn't really got his chance. So definitely a player that I'd love to see back in the league. But to me, it is a surprise that iLLeY and Gunless, it looks like iLLeY now is going to be out of there and Gunless is potentially in. At least, maybe they're going to trial both of them, and in a couple of days' time, they might say, you know what, iLLeY, we thought we did better with him, we're going to go back that way. But I would say for iLLeY, there is the concerning point that Gunless is free to acquire. He's not signed to an organization, he's played in challenges, he's a completely unrestricted free agent. Whereas iLLeY, he's on the surge, and we know from history, especially when OpTic tried to acquire Pred last season, that never happened. They apparently raised the buyout multiple times. Would you be surprised if Surge, if Rokkr came along to say, yeah, look, we were looking to get iLLeY, like what sort of deal can we do? And Surge said, well, you know, we want some sort of a buyout, and Rokkr said, okay, we're willing to pay something, and Surge, actually, no, we want more than that, we want more than that, we want more than that, and run it back as to what happened last year. So it's not impossible that iLLeY is effectively stuck in contract jail here on the Seattle Surge, and that they don't want to bring him back themselves. That's the current rumour, that it's still going to be aBeZy, aBeZy, and Hook, but with 04 instead of Arcetes, which is kind of strange to me. And maybe they feel like they want to bring iLLeY back into their team anyway, so they don't want to sell him. I don't really know. But yeah, tough to read into what's happening behind the scenes. All that I will say is that Gunless in the league would be massively exciting. Gunless versus Beans, because Gunless and Beans had that Twitter back and forth several months ago now, where they were getting into it. Beans is now back in officially with Boston, and well, they would play Minnesota in relatively short order, which would be very spicy if this was to be the case. I will just say though, if that is the team that Rokkr form, minus Wake, minus Vivid, plus Gunless, plus Standy, like, you know, I gotta say, a duo, as much as I think that Gunless can still be a solid player, I've not seen, you know, even okay, he won the most recent Challenges tournament, but apart from that, he's not like he's been frying in challenges for the last couple of years and been completely undeniable. A trio of accuracy, Gunless, and Standy in 2024 does raise concerns for me as to the pace, as to the slaying, as to all these other things. So, you know, I'd be concerned for Lins in that situation, getting hung out to dry somewhat, if these are the changes they do eventually make. And yeah, I'm just not convinced that if they do make these moves, they are good moves. I feel like I would prefer iLLeY over Gunless on paper, but maybe their scrims that say differently, or maybe Seattle Surge's management team, if there even is one, say differently. So very much enjoying your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.